crazy. Like, I don't know what we're doing. I mean, nobody misses like this, man. It's crazy.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Backlash Radio. Anthony Pino from Hook Optics. Nick Carullo from Front Runner down in Miami. And this week we got Chris Mowad from the Gulf Coast, Pensacola, Florida native, I would say. And then he guys fish out of Orange Beach on the best trait, is it called? Yeah.
Yep, the best trait.
Cool, man. Well, we're happy to have you, man. Super excited. Talk about your career and your recent accomplishments, and it's pretty wild accomplishment you've had recently, but we'll talk about that later. But let's just get into where you're how you got into fishing and where you grew up.
So I'm originally from California, but grew up in Pensacola, probably like, most everybody grew up fishing from a young age, mostly inshore fishing and fishing off the Gulf State Pier a lot at Pensacola Beach. My parents would drop me off out there when I was a kid and kind of grew up a pier rat, but my dad had a center console growing up, and we would kind of tinker with trolling a little bit, the older I got, and then caught my first wahoo and kind of first taste of blue water, and it just totally changed my life. And I grew up, two of my good buddies, their fathers were boat captains. One was a private captain and one was a charter captain. And I kind of just idolized their lifestyle from a very young age, getting to spend time on those boats. And, I would do anything I could just to get to help them clean fish or, wash the boat and just to be around the marina with them. So, I kind of decided from a really young age that was what I wanted to do, so didn't go to college. I kind of took the other route, just went straight into fishing, mostly private boating from the time I was, probably 18. I feel like for a lot of young kids that don't have somebody in the industry, like a parent that kind of breaks the mold for them, they got to do something to, meet the guys and, start getting rides and stuff. So I worked at a tackle shop my senior year of high school, and that was kind of the way that I got to meet, most of the charter guys and private boat guys. So it ended up working out good. Though I worked there for a few years, and then I actually worked at a kind of the nicer shop in our area, and that was where I got my first private boat gig, kind of half part-time at the store and then part-time on a boat called the Game On. And then it just evolved.
What kind of boat was that?
That was a 60-foot Miller. They're a custom boat from I think they're in Panama City.
Seems
it was an enclosed bridge boat. It was a sweet boat. It was set up for the Gulf, a bunch of fuel and big fish boxes and stuff. Just I feel like a boat for the Gulf they have, they can't just be a day boat. You got to have a ton of fuel and ton of extra storage and beds, and even just to bring enough food for 6 or 8 guys for 3 or 4 days. You gotta have a pretty hefty galley, unless you got coolers and stuff just stowed everywhere. But then I worked on the Game On for a few years, and a buddy of mine started running a boat, 52 Viking down in Costa Rica, and I took a job down there, fished there for a season, and wasn't really happy with the program, so I ended up coming back and freelancing. Did that for 2 years, just fishing the tournaments and stuff with a few different boats, and then 2014, I was probably 22 or 23. Miles, actually one of the other guests that you had, he was telling me that the Houdat was looking for a mate and they were leaving to go to the DR. So jumped on with them as a second mate and did 1 season in the DR, and then we did a full tournament season in the Gulf. And then the next year we went down to DR with a different second mate, and I moved up to first mate, and then the captain got let go after the DR season, and I got a chance to run the boat when I was 24. While he was the owner was looking for another captain, and we made a few fishing trips, and we, caught them pretty good. Those first 4 trips, I think we caught 16 or 18 blue marlins and a handful of white marlins mixed in. So it just kind of worked out really good. And, super fortunate to have an owner like that that'll give a young kid, the opportunity to kind of take the reins. But, he always asks me, he's like, how did you just know how to plan these trips and calculate all the fuel and this and that? It's like, man, I just kind of been doing it from a really young age. I was always the kid in the friend group who was the captain. I always got to drive and do all that, and just made a lot of mistakes at a very young age that I, was able to learn from. We would charge out there on my dad's 24-foot center console with 2 strokes, go 100 miles to the rigs for a couple days, and you break down enough time, you kind of learn your limits. But we only spent, I think one day we spent 3.5 days offshore. Had to get towed in, but I obviously told him that all that after the fact, after I started running.
Oh no, you guys just gotta. I mean, it's not a fake it till you make it thing. You're kind of there, so you're just kind of winging it. I mean, when I first started running the blood money, it was about the same age, and I was just like, I think I could do it. Yeah, sure, it'll work out.
Yeah, can you drive the boat? Sure, sure, I can drive, but
that everybody thinks that. To a lot of
well,
owners, I think they think that's the hardest part. I don't think that is.
Yeah, that was the other thing working for Keith Richardson on the Houdat. He was hands-on, but he also gave me the freedom. The engine room to him was the most important part of the boat, which I still believe to this day. So he wasn't scared to get in there and kind of teach me things. He was an engineer, by trade, so he was very sharp. You weren't getting anything past that guy. Not that you would. He knew more about boats than I feel like a lot of captains do. So that was a great guy to learn from. And then,
how many sorry, what's like the scene and like marinas like there in Pensacola? I mean, there are a lot of boats to kind of choose from, or it's kind of scarce.
No, it's pretty scarce. We had a bad hurricane come through a few years ago, and there's only a handful of marinas, and none of them are too big. They can hold maybe 24 boats or so, but there's not a very big sport fishing scene in Pensacola. I feel like most guys either base out at Orange Beach or Destin. Hurricane Sally wiped out our only 3 marinas, so I would love to keep the boat in Pensacola. Be right by the house, but just they got a few years still to kind of build everything back up.
Got it. So did you, when you were growing up, when you started on the Houdat, did you guys fish out of Destin or
no, we fished out of Louisiana. That boat was on the other side of the river from us in Grand Isle. And man, Grand Isle is a great spot to fish in the Gulf. It's kind of the center of everything. You can get to the rigs off Texas and still all the stuff off of Orange Beach. It's very centrally located, so that was cool to fish out of, and it also was a good learning experience for me to kind of run out of an inlet that I wasn't as familiar with. Just kind of learn a new area, don't get too comfortable right off the bat, and I enjoyed fishing out of there. We had some great fishing, and the Gulf fishery is kind of unique because it's very long. Like, I've caught a blue marlin and a swordfish 12 months out of the year in the Gulf. You can go out there and have a great day pretty much any time. The water at the rigs doesn't really ever get cold during the winter. It's 100 plus miles offshore and 7,000 feet of water. Doesn't really get below, I would say, mid 70s out there. So,
Nice.
So after I started running the boat, I'm sure you guys know Tim Richardson and Garrett Penley. I met them down in the DR, and before I took the captain's job, I agreed to go down and fish. Well, I didn't agree. I begged to go fish a season with Tim on the reef, and I already had my ticket, and also my boss let me go, and he ended up booking a week to come down and fish with us. But that turned out to be pretty awesome. I would give up anything to go back and fish another season on the reef. That was just unreal.
Talk about that a little bit.
Grind is the only way to describe it. It's like, I mean, I've done some long grinds, but I think I was in the country for 80 days and we fished 76 days in a row. You know,
Oh wow.
it was pretty awesome. You know,
So you're basically on land for 76 days, like off in the ocean for 76 days.
yeah,
You're not coming
yeah,
back because you're anchoring out there pretty much.
yeah. We would do our changeover. You know, we would fish for like 7 days and then do our changeover. And it was pretty much just to drop our laundry off, pick up our groceries, drop guests, and go right back out. You know, we were only at the dock for a few hours. When you think about, you know, if you take one day off in between every charter, you know, and they're $3,000 or $4,000 charters, you gave up, you know, 20 or 30 grand that season. So they can't really afford to have any downtime.
Wow.
But no, the fishing was awesome. I think we caught just shy of 70 that season. We didn't weigh any, but I think, you know, we had a handful that were right there at the number. I think we had 3 that we called 950 and, you know, maybe another 8 or so that were over 800.
Wow.
So that's like just a kind of the Harvard of sport fishing. If you want to learn how to heavy tackle fish and, you know, how to use a 130 and actually bite a fish, I mean, that's a really good spot to go do it. And those things they're different, you know, they're not like a blue mon where they'll rip out a bunch of line. They kind of, you know, we had really short top shots and I feel like you never saw the backing, you know, even if you had a 125-yard top shot, they rarely got down on the backing. It was pretty up close and personal, you know, really short fights, a lot of drag, you know, unless they did go down. But just those guys they're so aggressive driving the boat, you know, most of the time you get the leader in less than 5 minutes and get some jumps out of them and send them on their way.
Wow.
Yeah, they are aggressive. Do you get that? I mean, I've seen a couple of videos of the Houdat. I feel like do you take that from them when you were on there? I think you were on there when I saw the videos, being aggressive like that.
Yeah, man. I feel like being aggressive, you know, until you catch a handful of them, I feel like, you know, in the beginning everyone tries to be like, all right, keep the boat in gear, and but if you want to catch them quick, like, you know, or catch a lot of them, you got to catch them quick and catch them while they're biting. If they only bite for a couple hours, you know, you got to catch them quick for sure, you know. And the other thing I've kind of instilled in my mates is like when they're jumping early, you know, they're expending all that energy, they make a big run. If you can get back on them and get to them before they go down in that thermocline and recharge their batteries, and then the fight starts all over again, you know.
Yeah.
Even trolling, you know, lure fishing, we still catch a lot of them really quick.
Yeah.
We haven't really done too much lure fishing the last few years. We kind of just pull bridge teasers and long riggers nowadays, and we do a little bit of live baiting now, but I'm definitely a trolling guy at heart. I can't really get into the live baiting too much. It's fun, but it's not the same, you know.
Yeah.
The sonar's kind of changed everything though. This is the first year I've got to run a boat with an Omni, and it's kind of hard, you know, when you're riding around the rig and, you know, you mark one and the only thing you got out there's, you know, 2 bridge teasers. It's like, why wouldn't I? You know, I've got all these tuna tubes. Why wouldn't I just drop one right on his head?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very effective. That's for sure.
What did you learn from fishing in Australia that you took to tournament fishing in the Gulf? You know, like you guys are, most of those tournaments in the Gulf, you're setting out to kill one. You know, I
Right.
assume that there'd be a fair bit that transfers.
Really just, you know, don't be afraid to use the drag. I feel like, you know, if you get him on a circle hook and you feel like he's hooked pretty good, if you can, you know, get him up to 45 pounds of drag pretty quick, you know, then break their spirit right away. You can catch a lot of them quick. But, you know, the heavy tackle fishing in Australia, you know, we were using, I think the smallest leader we put out was maybe like 600 or something. So it's more than I would ever use in the Gulf. But a lot of the guys here in the Gulf, they drop down to super light leader just to get the bite. And, you know, you end up fighting one forever. It's not really any different than hooking one on a dink pole, you know. You can hang on to them for as long as you want, but you know, it's very hard to seal the deal.
How light are we talking?
Um, a lot of guys, the last day of the tournament, if they're a couple fish behind, they'll go down to like 130 or 100 pound.
It's a good
Yeah.
way to end up with a winner.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely a sure way to get a hook a big one.
Oh yeah, I'm 3 fish back in the release. Oh no, there comes a 600 pounder, 400 pounders in first.
The last boss I worked for, Keith Richardson, his son was fishing one of the tournaments on a center console, and they put one out. I think they had it on 180 or 220, and they fought that fish for, I want to say like 17 or 18 hours, you know, and they couldn't do anything with it. They'd grab the leader and just take off. He FaceTimed me like 15 times throughout the fight. He's like, man, what do we do? It's like, put a bigger leader out. I don't know.
hold on and pray. I mean, it's having it's one thing to get the leader, but if you got the right one on, you gotta be able to pull it the last couple feet.
Yep, it makes even when they're tired, just having the leader size to be able to just roll them over makes it makes all the difference. We fished the Talica 50s on the longs with select ballyhoos and chuggers with like 200 pound or 220. You can catch pretty much anything with that, but killing them's totally different story.
What do you do when you raise a big one? Like, do you tease it away and throw a bigger pitch, or
we if we mark a real big one and finally getting to the point where I can kind of start to tell the difference between the big marks and the regular marks, and we'll reel in the long riggers, and he comes up to the teaser, throw the 80 pitch at him. We normally throw the cable rig at him if it's a kill fish, or if it's just a regular one, just like 400 pound extra hard, one of those 14-0 mustads.
Gotcha.
We have had really good success with those. I think.
What hook do you have on the cable?
Same hook.
Same hook.
Mm-hmm. Either that one or one of those the big owner grander, whatever it is, the 14 or 16. I don't like too crazy, like too big of a hook, but it's got to have the right size gap to be able to, handle.
So what's the normal tournament spread? The 50s you said in the long riggers, and
we'll have the 50s on the longs, 2 bridge teasers. I like to pull 2 plugs. A lot of times I just pull 2 machines. I love that Aloha machine. That thing works good, especially a little bit slower. I feel like the slower you go, the easier that sonar is to kind of work. The live bait guys, live bait speed, they do super good with it. But our normal spread is just 2 50s on the longs, 2 bridge teasers, 2 dredges, and then we'll have a 30 pitch, a 50 pitch, and an 80 pitch, and catch the majority of them off the teaser.
Gotcha. Is that unique to how you guys fish, or is that typical? I mean, it sounds like, that do people still lure fish if they're not live baiting, or?
I feel like the last couple of years it's really evolved, with the sonar. Most guys just ride around with 2 squid chains out, 2 squid chains with mackerels, and then as soon as they mark one on the sonar, they, most of the time they reel them up before they even drive over them. That's kind of.
And then they just set 2 live baits out in the riggers.
Yeah, a lot of times they'll just send one. We normally just send one at first, just reel everything in, get up just ahead of them, and then just put 1 live bait out before you even put it up in the rigger. Just fish it right off the rod tip. Put the big leader out first, normally 400 pound, and then if he kind of follows you but he doesn't get fired up, then slide out like a 220 or a 280. But
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I haven't done the sonar that much, but just getting to watch them, you can tell when they're following the boat. It's like Then as soon as maybe the first bait wasn't as lively, as soon as that lively bait hits the water, they just like, oh, tilting up as fast as you can go, and he's
Are they more lazy around the rig? Is that why like if you're fishing a more open water, like say away more like on the 100 fathoms or something, like kind of more mixed bag fishing, do you get them more are they more aggressive than when they're on the rig, or does it depend?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I feel like pretty much all the fish we see in open water, you get a bite out of them. Sometimes, I study the moon and keep a good log and try to keep track of all that stuff. And the Gulf is just so consistently inconsistent. Like sometimes the new moon is the best fishing you'll see all year, and then sometimes it's better on first quarter or leading up to the full. But yeah, definitely the open water fish are they're much more aggressive than the rig fish. So I think that's kind of the tendency for the live bait guys, and everyone swears, oh, that fish in the Gulf don't tease, fish in the Gulf don't tease. And some days they don't, but some days they tease really well,
Yeah.
But
Interesting. I've always wondered what yeah, it kind of makes sense, like because all the bait, if it's what I can interpret from what I hear about fishing in the Gulf, if there's a lot of bait around the rig, it's kind of where you want to be, but they're not going to be as aggressive because they're not the food's there all the time.
Yep. There's a lot of truth in that. A lot of the guys, it seems like they'll catch bait at the rigs where there's a ton of bait, and then they'll fly 20, 30 miles and go put them out where there's not much bait. It's kind of strange. But a lot of people have had success doing that.
I see in Costa Rica, that is this last season when I was down there running a sonar, fishing on the bait, even if the fish were there, it wasn't as effective as being away and just being in a spot where there were fish and not that much bait.
Yeah, I feel like fishing in the Gulf is very similar to Casa de Campo. I've done 3 seasons down there in Casa de Campo, and it's very similar. Obviously it's a structure, but just the Gulf is, it's not near as red hot as Casa de Campo. So it kind of teaches you to be patient. If you find the conditions you're looking for, just hang out. They're gonna be there eventually, instead of just running all over the Gulf trying to find one fad where they're biting. It's like eventually they're gonna bite there.
Yeah. If you're around the right spot, like seeing everything that you know to be true, you just wait them out.
Yeah. If I study Hilton's and I get to a spot and I'm like, this looks exactly like it did on the chart, then you just kind of be patient and wait them out. We had a trip last year where I was fishing next to Miles, and we fished for 2 days. I think we caught 2, or caught 1 and a white, and he was like, man, I'm marking a bunch of fish. This was before I had a sonar. He's like, I'm marking a bunch, but we're just not getting bit. And then on the 3rd day, we hadn't had a bite by like 11 or noon. There's acres and acres of bonitas everywhere, big yellowfins, and we just kept waiting it out. And then I marked a quad on the up and down. I was like, oh my God, like surely these aren't blue marlins. And then the next like 3 hours was just incredible. We went 5 for 7 in 11 passes by the rig and had 3 over 700. It was just insane.
Oh,
wow. Were you teaser fishing or like bait fishing, or
yeah, we were pulling that same spread, pulling the
Nice.
chuggers on the longs and pitching everything off the bridge teasers.
wow.
That was some good fishing. We pulled the hooks on one that we had the gaffs out for. It was giant. It was definitely a boat ride fish on a fun trip. It was right there at it. It was a big one.
Wow.
We pulled the hooks on that. That one ate a long rigger, and anglers standing there with the Talic at 50 just like melting. We're like, well, let's try. But it eventually pulled the hook. But
Wow.
That's incredible, man. And then sometimes you hear about the tournament stuff and here on the East Coast, but you don't hear about the day-to-day fishing and just the regular fun fishing. That kind of, when you hear that sort of fishing, it's incredible.
I mean, you said it's kind of good year round, but what have you seen to be like the best months?
my best day numbers wise was in December. We were 6 for 9. We left at sunrise, and by like 3 o'clock that afternoon we were 6 for 9. And then
What?
Yeah. Mhm.
Jesus. Babe, we're moving to the Gulf Coast.
Yeah, we were 6 for 6. We started out 6 for 6 and then fucked off 3 in a row. Like one ate both baits and they come tight and come back like hook to hook. And then one broke a main line, one broke a leader. I was like, golly, we need that number 7. And then the next morning we fished till noon. And I think we had 5 bites by noon the next day. And they're like, all right, let's go to the house. I'm like, what?
Golly.
What? Let's just throw the anchor and just stay.
Damn. You're not the first person I've heard have a really incredible day in December there.
Yeah, I fished with Miles a bunch that winter, just riding along as a second mate. And then 6 days of fishing, I think we had 24 or 26 blue marlins.
Oh
in
my.
6 days of fishing. It was, and all the big yellowfins you want. I mean, we were live baiting then, and the big yellowfins would push your bait up to the top and you'd be skipping that thing in as fast as you can so it didn't get piled on. And I mean, you were getting 6 or 8 bites out of 150 plus pound yellowfins a day too. I mean, it was just unbelievable. But that was a La Nina that season, and this winter has been really good too, and it's also La Nina, so probably something to it.
Yeah. That's
But
wild.
our fall fishing is normally really good. It seems like we don't catch a lot of big eyes here, but in the fall they always show up in October, and there's normally a handful of big blue marlins following them around. I've caught a handful in that 700 to 800 pound range this time of year.
Wow.
And then we caught a really big one a couple weeks ago. So I guess that holds true still.
Yeah. Is the weather the limiting factor there? Because I mean, I assume you're running offshore to a rig over 100 miles away.
Yeah. This time of year the weather windows get shorter, but if you can leave when that north wind starts to blow and starts knocking it down, you can go out there with a following sea, and normally you get 2 or 3 days of nice weather. Normally it'll slick out for you for a couple days. But everybody kind of switches gears and starts deer hunting and puts the boat in the yard and does all that. But I really would like to see a tournament this time of year, just even if it didn't have a ton of participation, but get 20 or 30, 40 boats out there and put up some good numbers.
Yeah, I mean, you'd put I mean, if that was similar to what you experienced, and who knows, put 40 boats out there, where it might be better, it might be worse, but it'd be cool to find out.
Yeah,
I've always thought, man, maybe we should go to the Gulf Coast for the winter. And then everybody was always said that the weather was too, and with our program, it's tough to have the weather and the schedules line up,
Sure. Yeah, that I feel like the programs that really take advantage of that fishing that time of year are kind of the guys that can leave at the drop of a hat. You see weather coming and you just load the boat up and go. It would be kind of hard to coordinate out of town schedules and everything.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting. And then let's talk about, before we get into what happened last month, talk about the evolution of the numbers fishing going on there in the Gulf Coast. Is that something that happens over your way too, or is it just more of a Texas thing?
No, it happens over our way. There's just not a huge, everybody's gung ho about the live baiting, and there's not a ton of guys that are out there, pulling even just two squid dredges, let alone natural dredges or whatever else. There's just not a lot of guys doing it, but the fishing's there. It's definitely, good. I think it was 2011. We had a pretty good day in there. I think we were 7 for 7 on whites for a ladies' day tournament, and we didn't have dredges in the water, or it was just very, very basic fishing. But they get in there when the bait gets stacked up in there on the 100 fathom. I mean, there was a boat this year that had 20 bites, 20 plus white marlin bites.
Do you see, when you're running offshore, like fishing a tournament where you're kind of more focused on blue marlins and being around the rigs, do you see that? Like you I don't know what it looks like in the Gulf, but like do you come across a rip and like there's birds and scattered grass and you're like, there's a free jumper and you're like, shit, but I got to go do this?
Yeah, it happens. It happens occasionally. A lot of the swordfish guys, they see free jumpers and stuff in there. And a few times this year, I was running out, and you see the bait just stacked in there, in the 100 fathoms. You're like, I've got to run to my spot, you know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think the bait's, it's definitely in there. You could definitely capitalize on it more than our area does. I know Newt came down here. He was running a Paul, I think it was a Paul Mann boat years ago, and he had some
Dirty Business, I think it was.
yeah, Dirty Business or Dirty Minds or yeah, Dirty Business, I believe. He had some great fishing, just kind of fishing bottom and um even getting up in there in that green water. We had some awesome fishing in the green water this year, and most people are like, we gotta get to the cobalt blue water, and I think that stuff gets overlooked a lot.
Yeah.
It takes a different type of person to be able to just pound it out in that green water and catch the heck out of them. But I know they're in there.
Yeah.
Well, Justin was probably in those tournaments, was fishing all in that tighter stuff, wasn't he?
Hmm. Yeah, he was fishing. Seems like the sail fishing was in there even tighter than I was fishing, but yeah, he was kind of mixing it up from like 500 to maybe 2,000 feet of water in there. But yeah, he did well in the green water. He's caught more sailfish around here than ever. I mean, only caught a handful, and this year it was more than my entire golf career combined. But I mean, he's pulling those things out left and right.
He was
Pretty-
catching them.
Pretty cool to see.
People
they've
didn't even
been
know
pretty
they
cool.
existed there.
I know, that they've been pretty good all the way through, September, early October. Even the guys just kind of bump trolling live baits down the beach. They were catching them right off the second sandbar. I was like, what? Never heard about this when I was a kid.
Was it? Yeah, that's what I'm wondering is like, was that fishing, especially the sails? Because I'm sure the white marlins have probably been in there probably for quite some time, but like, was it just something that was overlooked because of the way the tournaments and the fishery and what people emphasize there, and they just never did it, or were the fish just not there?
I think a little bit of both. I think most people don't give it the time of day, but I think this year was a little above average for all those numbers. But Justin had a good season last year too, so that's hard to say. If you talk to some of the old timers, especially Pensacola and Destin, they said they always were in there. They never really went past 100 fathoms, and they caught tons of whites and sails. So maybe it's a cycle, maybe it's just different fishing techniques. I think the sonar gives you a lot more confidence to kind of ride around in an area like that you're not super sure about. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I went to the rigs. We went to the rigs for our first tournament, and then I didn't go back until maybe September, just because we had very consistent fishing out there. Get in a 2 or 3 day trip, get 3 to 5 blue marlin bites and 10, 15 whites and a handful of sails mixed in there too. It was awesome fishing.
How far is that typically?
The 100 fathom for us is like 30 miles. We did a bunch of day trips this year, where we were getting 10 bites a day consistently, and you're fishing from 7:30 to 5.
Wow,
We're leaving. I'm moving to.
that's nice.
the
I told you need to
Gulf Coast.
move to Florida, dude.
I'm not moving to your side of Florida. I'll go to over there.
No state income tax, man.
Jesus. 30 miles. You guys been running over this, spending days out there where you could just been fishing half days.
Yeah, we had a trip this year. We lost the controls. We caught, I think, 2 blues and 3 whites the first day, and then we lost the controls. I don't know what happened, but I had all I had was my little backup controls, the Game Boy with the dials, and we got into them the last hour and a half of that day. I think we saw 3 blues and 10 whites in like an hour and a half.
Golly, dude.
And I wasn't even, I mean, I couldn't fish the turn because I didn't, I was like, all right, just wind them up and let's catch this thing real quick, but I feel like you would put the boat in gear and then you'd mark one on the sonar, and we didn't go more than like 30 seconds without a bite for an hour and a half. It was just unbelievable. I had a double header of whites on. We had one on the long rigger and got one on the inside of the turn on the bridge teaser, and then like a 500-pounder piles on the other chain in the wash. Just like, get that thing away. It was awesome.
And this is
That white marlin fishing is it in tight? That the best of it is in that tight water?
Yeah, anything from like 30 to 60 miles is the best of it for sure.
Jesus.
It's a fairly small area, and there's a couple of the government fads there, and we caught a few fish around them, but not really, not really.
What do you think about them putting out the government fads? Do you think that's a good thing, or doesn't matter? I mean, you guys fish on structure all the time. I would be furious if they did that here. But
I mean, I feel like if you want to go catch mahis and stuff like that, it's good, but I don't think it's really going to up your billfish numbers or anything like that. At least not here. It's not like, not like down in Costa Rica or the Dominican, but definitely every monkey boat that comes by there is going to kill every triple tail and mahi that he sees.
yeah, that's kind of what the feeling I have with it. It's not really it's not creating more fish. They're just putting them all in one spot, and then they just get massacred.
No, for sure. Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, this is coming from a guy who's been driving around the ocean with a $100,000 sonar in the boat for the last 5 years. So I don't know. I'm certainly not coming from a place of like really looking out for the fish, So.
They got some pros, but I think there's probably just as many cons as there is pros,
Yeah.
Especially when there's not, if there's just like 6 of them. Like right now, I think they put out 8 and then a few of them went away, so there's like 5. And if it was like Casa de Campo where there's like 100, maybe the guys wouldn't all park on top of each other, but yeah, I don't think 6 is really going to make too much of a positive impact on anything,
Yeah.
Dude, looking at when you say Pensacola, I'm like, oh, it's in Florida. It's not that far. I'm looking at Pensacola.
It's in another country compared to where you live.
Dude, it is so far.
It is far.
It's like the end of our panhandle of Florida, dude.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I talk to people and they're like, oh, you're from Florida? I'm like, yeah, from Florida. They're like, oh, so Miami? I'm like, no. Oh, so you're from Orlando? I'm like, just keep going. Like it's only like another 8-hour car ride, but yeah, it's still Florida. You're better off just telling people that you're from Alabama because they don't understand.
Yeah, no, Pensacola is far, man. Holy moly.
Yeah, I think it's like 9 or 10 hours from Miami.
Jesus.
It might be more because I thought Tallahassee was like 8 or 9 from Miami.
And then we're 3 from Tallahassee. So
yeah. Wow. Well, now look at the map. You ever been to the old Henderson Ridge?
The Henderson Ridge is out there by Lloyd's Ridge.
Yeah, it's way out there.
Yeah. I went out there for the second tournament of the year. There was a nice little piece of water out there, and I was the only guy out there. And unfortunately, I didn't have a clue what I was doing with that sonar. But man, I felt like we were in the right spot. There was right before the major. I pulled up like within a quarter or half a mile on my spot, and there's acres of skipjacks. I see the bluefins airing it out. Saw a couple free jumpers. I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna find something out here. And we had one mystery bite, but that was like kind of my first or second time using that sonar. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I'd had the game way down low and wasn't really marking much. But that white marlin fishing, man, I feel like that is such a good training camp for that sonar, especially if you can get a bunch of targets, and if you can follow white marlin on that thing, at trolling speed, you can do the blue marlin fishing for sure.
Interesting.
That place, the Nipple, it's right out from Pensacola.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where you catch the whiteys?
Yep, right there, the Nipple and the elbow.
Let's see this place.
Look at that, Anthony. There's white marlin on the map.
Yeah, the fishing at the Nipple this year was awesome. there would be 10 or 12 boats in there, maybe 15, 20 on a busy day, and everybody was getting bites, and you fish till 6 o'clock and run for an hour and be at the house. It was pretty sweet.
An hour.
And I finally just now have a faster, I say faster, but we're like 20, 29 knot cruise. We're still not fast, but we're getting faster.
He's right there, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I
And
always
there's a couple nice little pieces of bottom just to the west of there that gets pretty good. And then the elbow, as you go around to the southwest, the elbow is really good. And the steps, we had some great fishing at the steps this year too. There was a buddy of mine on the Florida Lee. They had some great fishing. They did an overnighter, and I think they had 2 blues and 14 whites and 3 or 4 sails, and they weren't even pulling dredges. I was like, what? So, I mean, can you imagine if, somebody that was dialed and really good at fishing the turn came in there, and you could probably bring that blood money boat in here and do some damage. Telling you.
30 miles Gulf Coast fuel prices. I think people would like that from around here. I don't see 50 miles ever anymore up here. It sounds pretty amazing.
We're super fortunate. The marina we keep the boat at in Orange Beach, if you're a member in their whatever their club, or they sell you fuel at like cost. So we're saving like $1 or $1.25 on fuel. So it's you can go fishing for a day on 250 gallons, and it's like less than $1,000, and to have 10 shots for $1,000 is pretty phenomenal.
What yeah, I mean, generally fuel is cheaper there just in general.
Mm-hmm.
I've only ever been to Louisiana there, and it seems like it's like almost $1 cheaper there than it is up here.
Yeah,
because hence you guys make it there. So
yeah, that's
so cool.
There's plenty of that pumping around over there. If you guys haven't been to the rigs and seen them, it's pretty cool to see, man. There's a lot going on out there. It's still hard for me to wrap my head around that those guys are drilling like 30 and 40,000 feet into the earth in 7,000 feet of water on a boat that's just holding there on DP. It's like kind of
I can't fathom that.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. There's several hundred billion-dollar structures out there just
floating around.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
What do you I mean, is there any sort of distance that you have to stay away from them, Chris?
There's one rig that the auger, they built that one, early on, and they didn't put it in their CFRs they didn't even account for sport fishing boats, so they can still request you to leave, but they put in a CFR for any vessel under 99 feet is basically out of their jurisdiction. So they can ask you to leave, but they can't really like force you to leave.
I got you.
All their equipment is so heavy duty that you're not bugging them. I feel like you could hit the side of that thing doing 15 knots and it wouldn't even scratch the paint.
Man. Yeah,
man, if you get some free time and you want to come fishing, in the spring or after or before your season, just come check it out and see if it's something you'd be interested in.
I think
I'd love to see it.
I think I'm gonna probably just move there. So
sounds like Anthony's type of place.
I've always had this dream. Well, I haven't, but I've just developed this dream of having this like 38 Henriquez and putting a sonar in and just trying to dominate all the small boat categories. But 30 miles just sounds awesome. And how long does that go on the inshore fishing there?
Pretty much from like June 1st through October. It's really good.
As long as the water's there, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Does the water ever get in there in the winter, or is it kind of get blown out?
Not really. And the water doesn't even have to be super good, super pretty water in there. Like, as long as it's that kind of clean green or clean
blended
water,
yeah.
If there's just a little bit of current in there, they're going to be in there.
Yeah, we live up here we live for blended. I've learned to live for blended water.
So have I. Yeah,
Yeah.
I never really had the confidence fishing in it, and that's where you want to be. Lately, I've finally learned that, but that's a good place to be.
So cool, man. I'm learning so much. This is so cool. So let's get on to not the reason why we had you on. I mean, I've kind of followed you from afar for a long time, Chris, and I think both me and Nick have. But I mean, the reason that kind of got you in our heads was the quite large blue marlin that you guys captured last month, was it?
Yep.
Cool.
October 17th.
You said that
Wow.
this is
2 days before my birthday.
when you
Best birthday present ever.
Yeah.
when you start to get around that time of the year, like you said, are you starting to get a feeling like, man, you're gonna see a nicer one that time of year?
Yeah, I think so for sure. You know,
Yeah.
we have that Mongo tournament that started here, and it's a 6-month long deal. And normally, I think the last 3 out of the last 4 years, it was won in September. You know, they broke the state record a couple years ago in September, and it's definitely a good time of year for big fish. You know, I feel like they definitely follow those big yellowfins and big eyes that show up here before they do their thing. You know, the blue marlins are not too far behind them. So we kind of transitioned from think bait fishing back into going to the rigs, trying to find a big fish for the Mongo, and just, you know, told the guys, like, man, we need to just throw 400 pound at everything, just to, you know, if we do hook the right one, I want to have the right leader in them, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, that big one we caught, you know, the stars really have to align for a fish like that, and that one was no different. You know, I was studying the water, and you know, we had a trip coming up, and I planned on going to a rig called Blind Faith, but our guys didn't get in till late, so I kind of didn't have enough time to make it there, and I had to stop a little bit short of there. And we had a few bites at this rig called Nikika. I think we were 0 for 2 and saw another one, and saw a white marlin that wouldn't tease, and they were both nice fish. So everybody was kind of upset, but still, you know, very positive. Like, hey, you know, fishing's good. Just we'll get the next one. And then I talked to a buddy. He was at the Blind Faith, the rig I was headed to, and there was 3 boats there, and there'd been 8 fish caught. I was like, oh, God, like I should have been there. So the major was coming up. It was getting ready to start the major. And then we got invaded by porpoises. A school of like 100 and something porpoises came through, and they're ripping mud flaps off, and you couldn't fish. Yeah, the dolphins
I've seen that in Stewart too.
the dolphins will ruin your day so fast. I mean,
Wow.
if you're live baiting, if you're trolling, it doesn't matter. They will run you off the rig. So we firewalled it over there to Blind Faith and put the spread out and put the sonar down in the water, and mark 2 fish right away and wheel over them, get cleared, drop a bait on one, and he like totally avoids the boat, and you know, he's not going to play the game. So
Wait, so you're dropping live bait now?
Yeah, like a 6 or 7 pound blackfin on that 400 pound.
But how come you're doing the live bait now, not versus your normal trolling?
Really, because we were trying to catch some of the big tunas that were around, and you know, part of the reason that I don't live bait at all during the summer is when the water temp gets so hot, you can't keep your bait alive. You know, they'll live till like 9 o'clock, and then 9 o'clock you're out of bait. And some guys spend all day just trying to catch bait. You know, it's very hard to catch during the day. So just to avoid doing that, I don't live bait at all until that water temp gets back down to like 80 degrees, and you can keep a full quiver of baits alive. You know, so
yeah.
So we caught a few fish before that live baiting, and the guys were fired up. They wanted to live bait, so we went out there and strictly live baited. But yeah, I marked that big fish, and a friend of mine was over there dropping baits on it. He said it, you know, wouldn't react and couldn't get a bite out of it, so I just wheeled in there right behind him and threw one on 400 pound to it, and that thing exploded. I mean, it ate it right off right off the back of the boat. I mean, the swivel wasn't much past the rod tip, and just ate it going away. And you see a lot of shoulders and a lot of tail. And then it started jumping like right towards the rig, jumped a couple times all the way out of the water, and just going away. I couldn't tell how long it was. I just, see it was really wide. I was like, man, this is a nice one. Definitely, 700 pounder or so. And then we race over there to it and burns off a bunch of drag going away from the rig, then jumping away again. And the fish stayed up on top for like the first 45 minutes, just racing around. And luckily that little boat, it's a 55 Viking, so it's, super maneuverable. And we raced around on it pretty good. And as soon as she went down, we went up to like 60 pounds on the drag, and she made one more good run at like 60 pounds, and then slowly just started creeping it out. And this was like maybe an hour into it, hour and a half into it. And I was like, guys, I think she died. I think the fish is just sinking. So we rolled the drag all the way up to like 90 pounds and palmed the spool and slowly started planing her up. And it took a long time. Like,
what are you doing with the boat when this is happening? When it died, like when you realize that it's probably dead and you're starting to plane them up?
Just basically slow them down with the spool, slow them down with the drag until you can get it to almost stop creeping out, and then start slowly bumping the boat forward, just kind of bumping it every once in a while. And then as that goes on and you get more line back on the spool, you can, pull away just to, just leave one in gear, kind of pull away from it. But yeah, in the beginning, I'd pull forward for a few minutes and they would put like 10 or 15 yards of line on the reel, maybe. And then it would go to like 25 yards, and then they were getting 30 yards. And, once she was probably like half a spool out when we started to plane her off. So I don't know how much drag that is, but 99 pounds or 90 pounds, it was all the way in park.
I mean, you got, I mean, this is 130, whatever, Moy Diamond 130 or something like that. And it's like, so you're at 90 pounds with it, to have a spool out, you're stressing it to the absolute. That's it was fucking sick.
It was, I don't know how nothing broke. I mean, just a blessing, really. I mean, I like to use that Benjamin knot. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I feel like if that knot's tied properly, it gives you that little bit of shock to, get the most out of your line. I like the what is it, the Berkeley Pro Spec. I like that stuff. I've had really good luck with that. We use that on all our reels, and luckily it held on. But yeah, we started putting some line back on the reel, and towards the end we would get, say 50 yards or maybe 75 yards back. And then she kind of started to not float up, but, put some scope in the line, and she popped up back there, and we backed up there to it and just put, 2 straight gaps in her. And I ran down off the bridge and opened the door, and the second I grabbed her bill was when I knew. I was like, oh my God, this is giant. Like, I've pulled not a bunch of blue marlins through the door, but I've killed a handful. And man, a 600 pounder compared to the stump on that thing was insane. I mean, it was so ungodly thick. It was just like a totally different level of huge. So we're pulling it through the door, and we get it like just a dorsal in. You can just see its big head, and everyone's kind of like looking at each other like, is this real? Like, is this thing, like, this doesn't even look real. It looks like a dinosaur. And we couldn't get it coming out. I normally carry a come along or a chain fall or something like that just for pulling one in the door, but I dropped the ball on that. We didn't have one. So I called my buddy that was right next to us when we hooked the fish, and he put 2 of his mates on the boat, and they helped us drag it through. And I remember having it by the bill, and I backed up, and my back hit the salon door, and we still weren't even to the anal fin. I was like, oh my God, this is huge. We pulled a tape on it real quick, and I was like, all right, hold it at the tail. And I measured, and it was like 143. And I was like, there's no way. Like, hold it at the tail. You're doing something wrong. So we pull it again. I was like 143. It's like, well, it's kind of banana. It's still hanging out of the boat. Like, let's get it all the way in, and let's get a good measurement. So we we pulled the tail up to the belly band just so we can get the door closed, and then we laid it on the covering board, and we measured it, measured it bent, and it was then it measured like 137. I'm like, okay, that's still really big, but it's much more realistic. Like, what's the girth? And it was 42, so or half of it was 42. It would be 84, and I was like, man, that seems huge. And I was texting with Tim Richardson. He's like, what are the measurements? And I told him, he's like, no, that can't be right. You got to go down there and measure it again, mate. You did something wrong. And I was like, all right. I must have measured that fish like 50 times that night. We put it in the boat right at sunset, and the guys were like, all right, let's haul ass in and go weigh this thing. And I was like, man, we're like 140 miles from the dock. Like, we're just going to chug in and we'll line it up to have it weighed at sunrise at Orange Beach Marina. So we got in at 6 or 7 a.m. and had a big crowd of people there to watch us weigh the fish. And it was a really, really cool experience. Super special for the city of Orange Beach. The city's going to do a big replica mount down. I don't know exactly where they're going to put it, but they'll put it somewhere. And I feel like the Gulf has been kind of waiting for that fish for a long time.
Yeah, it's the first grander in the Gulf, right?
I think there's been 3 or 4 now, but the last one was like 20 years ago.
I got you. Yeah.
Wow.
That's incredible. So what did it measure out to? What did it weigh? I forgot.
It was 145 3/4 by 84 with a 62-inch tail and 20-inch stump, and it was 1145.6.
Jesus.
It was a monster. And the funny thing about it is there was not, like, the only thing in its stomach was our bait. There was I mean, that thing could eat a 60 or 80 pound tuna, like, without even thinking about it,
Yeah.
The formula on it had it like up over 1250. It was like 1270 or something like that. But either way, I mean, it's just a fish of a lifetime. Super, super fortunate, to see something like that. And
so you said at the outset of the story, you said that another boat had marked it and you went over to it. Why did it choose you? Do you have any idea?
I think I was just living right, man. I don't know. I just got lucky and got the bite. I think he was throwing like 220 at it, and it decided. I didn't even put fluorocarbon out. I like that 400-pound extra hard, and she piled on it. It was great. I can't answer that. I don't know why she picked our bait, but it was definitely a sick bite.
Do you when you're going slow, do you feel like doing that sort of fishing where you're like kind of picking out your target and going after it? Do you find that like the direction of how you approach it makes any difference? I mean, it may not in this instance, but overall.
Yeah, overall, definitely. If you can kind of slide in ahead of them and slow the boat down gradually and kind of present a bait that way, I think it makes a big difference. But this one, it didn't make a difference at all.
If it ate it as soon as the bait hit the water, it was came to look at the boat before,
Yeah, no, she was still off the bow when we threw the bait, and I mean, she raced as fast. I mean, you see that thing just racing across the screen. It was insane. I was like, get ready, you're about to get a bite. He's like, my bait's nervous, and then boom, going away by it was like, oh,
it's a little more nervous.
Who fought it? Your boss?
No, crazy. Like, so this is a first year program. These guys have never marlin fished. Just a friend of theirs said, if you guys like, duck hunting and deer hunting, you should try marlin fishing. So they bought a boat and hired me, and the guy that actually introduced us was the one that caught it. The owner wasn't the owner, or his sons unfortunately weren't on board. It was just a guest of theirs. So,
oh jeez.
But he's a great angler. He he's been to Australia a handful of times, been to Cape Verde and a handful of times to the Azores. So he's been to some big fish destinations, and he's put the time in for sure. So this is a
fish for for you, your mates, and him too. Like it
Mhm.
was something that it might have not been set out to do in his fishing career, but in the back of your mind, like you kind of always have this sort of thing in your head.
For sure. Yeah. I think for all of us,
Yeah.
to catch a fish like that anywhere in the world is just, a lifetime goal. But to catch one at home, and bring it to your hometown and have your friends and family around it was just next level. It was really special.
Yeah.
I'll remember that one forever.
And that wasn't during the manga tournament, was it?
No, it was like,
Damn
I
it.
think it was like 2 weeks after. So
You need to adjust that.
yeah, he's talking about extending it next year. He's going to go, I think, till the end of October. But yeah, it was just a really cool experience, for my mate. He started with me 2 years ago or 3 years ago on the Houdat, and he was a fairly inexperienced kid, and now he's a stud. He's gotten to get good at hooking them and teasing them, and it's very cool to see a young kid evolve like that and just keep a positive attitude, and something good like that happens is seeing that smile on his face was priceless.
Does it mean something to you to see somebody go from beginner to, I mean, you're killing granders now, so I guess he's an expert,
Yeah. Yeah, no,
You probably don't want to tell him that.
it was yeah, very cool feeling. And for me too, even when I started running the Houdat, I've always had phenomenal mates. I started running that boat and we had two full-time mates, and they were both studs. And then the program slowed down just a little bit. So my mate moved on and took a captain's job. And then to kind of cool to prove it to yourself, that you can take a new kid and train him, to learn your program and fish your style, and then get back up to that high level is really cool. It's for me, it's just a unbelievable feeling. It's kind of hard to explain, but
Yeah, no, it's unbelievable, man. What I mean, but the owner of the boat, I mean, has that like sparked a fire in him, like now, like watching that happen?
yeah, as soon as we put the fish in the boat, I called him and told him, I said, Scott, we just boated a really big fish. You guys probably going to want to drive down to come see this thing. And he's like, well, how big is that? I said, Scott, I don't know. It's the biggest one I've ever seen. This is very possible the biggest one that's ever been caught in the Gulf. I'm saying it's probably between 11 and 1150, just trying to be conservative. We did the measurements and took a couple inches off of each one.
You were
just to
dead
try
on
to
though.
Yeah, try to be conservative. But yeah, I texted a buddy of mine. He's like, I saw the picture, but how big is it really? I was like, man, I think it's 1150. That was my guess, and it was 1145.
That's
Wow.
badass, dude.
It was crazy.
Jeez Louise. But so now your boss is fired up to start doing more of this, or?
Yeah, now he's super fired. I mean, they're so all about it. He's fully invested into it. We just put a deposit down on a 67 or 68 Richie Howell. Haven't decided yet, but we're building a new boat, and probably gonna upgrade this one and get an interim boat for a couple years. If you guys hear of any cool boats coming available,
I do.
we're kind of in the market. And I know that custom boat game is kind of like a very tight-knit circle. You don't really hear about the good ones. They're just kind of on to the next. They never hit the market, but yeah, we're definitely looking. So these guys are, he's got two sons and two daughters, and the sons, they're my age, they're 32, and they can't get enough. They love every bit of it. They getting involved in the rigging and bait rigging and bait catching, and they love it all. So super fortunate, man. I think this could be another pretty long-term deal. I was fortunate to be on the Houdat for almost 10 years, and hopefully for this one, just as long or longer.
Badass,
That's awesome,
dude.
bro.
What's it mean to you to have a job like that for 10 years? I mean, the Houdat was a pretty solid program. I mean, more than solid, but being on a boat like that, it's a lot. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't always great, but after 10 years, what's it like?
Job security in this field of work is something that's few and far between. And anytime you can find that stability, it's hard to leave, even if there's, better money on the table or more, faster boat or bigger this, it's just, having that stability. And then, having a boss that's like family. I still talk to my old boss, a couple times a week, and we're still great friends. And I talk to my new boss, almost every day. And yeah, just super thankful to be around people like that, to have a job, that treats you literally like family. It's a blessing for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Um,
Yeah, but hard to find a good guys and good guys you get along with, and
Yeah, and just as expensive of a sport, as you guys know, it's hard to find somebody that can stay fired up as spending, $1 million a year just to get, for something for fun.
yeah,
You try to explain to friends, that don't really understand the sport fishing thing, they're like, so how do you guys make money? It's like, well, we don't make any money really. If we're lucky to win a tournament, we'll make a little bit, but you might break even. But most of the time, I'm just spending this guy's money like crazy.
yeah.
But it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun spending other people's money.
I'm sure going out to, like, I remember being in the Midwest at one point, like Ohio, and somebody asked what I did for a living and having to explain it. It just was like very, very difficult to, I equate it to like car racing or horse racing,
Yeah. It's a crazy level, and the thing is, unless you're having fun and unless you absolutely love it, it's
Don't
too
make
expensive.
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense. It's just not even realistic.
Yeah.
It was cool. I was just in Missouri, hunting with my mate Addison's family. They got a farm up there, and we were sitting at the little staging area, and there was a guy from Wisconsin. He was like, "You guys fish, right?" It's like, "Yeah, we fish for a living." He's like, "Did you guys see that fish in Orange Beach?" I was like, "Yeah, man, I saw it. I was there." It was
That's
pretty
amazing.
crazy. That news on that fish, I didn't really like post much about it, or I just sent a few of my friends pictures of it, and then I opened up social media and it had just like exploded everywhere. Like, I was like, man, how does that just circulate that fast? I don't understand.
Well,
Oh yeah.
is that the biggest fish caught in the Gulf?
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, the previous record was 1,054. And then the Alabama state record was 851. So I beat that one by almost 300 pounds.
What explain that coin your dad gave you. It's a badass coin.
Yeah, it's a really cool coin, man. We had a kind of tough luck the first of the season, pulling a few fish off, and we're pretty good about getting the bites to win the tournament, but not exactly always capitalize on all our bites. So he's like, he he gave me the coin just as my dad's, sweet old man, but he's kind of corny, typical old guy stuff. But he's like, he gave one to my mate and he gave one to me. We had a dinner, and he said, "This is going to change your luck. Just keep it on you all the time." And that coin hasn't left the bridge since he gave it to me. And gosh, I don't think I ever will take it off the bridge.
I say you could send it down to me. Let me borrow it for a little bit.
Come on, rub on it for a little bit. But yeah, that was a really cool gift. My old mate, it's a funny story, Kevin Alexander, he's like, "Man, that coin is sick. I just bought one off eBay." Got one coming, so hopefully it brings me some luck too. I was like, "Man, I hope it does," but that's not really how luck works, unfortunately. But I hope it brings you some.
Did your
That's funny.
when you were growing up, Chris, were your parents like, were they in the, well, obviously your dad was in the fishing, were they pretty supportive of you pursuing this as a career, or did you have to battle through?
No, it was a pretty big battle, and until I got my first captain's job, then they kind of started to respect it a little bit. I got my license when I was 18 and ran a few inshore charters, but yeah, they were supportive of whatever I wanted, but they I don't think they fully believed in it, and Then I
Just in the
started.
industry, or I mean, obviously they did not believe in you, but just like
Oh
that
yeah,
you
just
could make a living off of this.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard to explain to people, but when you start bringing home, respectable money, and you're just happy coming home from work. Not every day, but most days you're pretty happy coming home from work, and
Well, we
we're
are.
just.
Anthony, not so much.
I'm pretty
Oh, come
happy
on.
most of the time.
I
I'm
mean, if
kidding.
you if you think about it though,
I feel like you got to have some shitty days, or it's not really a job, So sometimes
oh yeah,
sometimes I have to force them upon
Yeah, but then
myself.
you still gotta be like, damn, this is what I do. My buddies are stuck in an office right now, looking out the
Yeah.
window.
yeah,
Yeah. So I just make a couple, I just create a bunch of issues for myself, and that's how I make it a job.
yeah. When you're like knee deep in the bilge and human feces, that it
That's when it really makes sense.
yeah, it
Yeah.
kind of puts it all in perspective. But for the most part, there's so many people in this world who live their entire life and they never find out what they're good at, and they never find out what actually like makes them happy. Like I can't. There's nothing else that I would be good at doing. Like just to be able to apply every single second of thought. That's
Yeah.
the reason that all of us are fairly good at our jobs, is because of the time and the amount of thought that everybody invests into it. It's kind of a blessing and a curse to not ever be able to turn it off.
Yeah.
You know,
So I think
relationships
it
and
just
stuff.
starts as an obsession that we just can't stop thinking about.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like how often do you look at the water shots, Chris?
Every day,
Every day.
every day. Yeah, every day. As soon as I wake up and sit on the toilet and I pull up Hilton's, and that's how I start my day every day.
Yeah, bro. The fucking clouds are around. That'll put you in a bad mood. If you know that after like here, we're like pretty dependent on east wind, right? So like if a nor'easter comes through or something like that, and I'm like waiting for the clouds to clear, and I'm waiting for the northwest to come so it gets dry and clear. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And like if I got a fishing day coming up, I'm like waiting for this water shot, and my mates are like, "Why are you so stressed out?" It's like, I don't know where we're going tomorrow. And then the shot finally appears. It might be the middle of the night, but I'm like, oh, okay.
Yep.
Now at least I have an idea.
Yep. No, I can totally relate to that. You're sitting there like refreshing it. It's going to refresh at 9 o'clock, and you're just keep clicking and clicking. Yeah. I, I study Hilton's a lot. I'm curious to get your opinion, both of you guys, on reading our water, just to see what would jump out to you guys, because I know you guys are, especially those East Coast guys, are as good or better than anybody at reading water, because you don't have any oil rigs or structure to kind of bail you out. You're looking for a piece of water, and I would just like to get you guys' opinion on that sometime. I'll send you a couple screenshots
Yeah,
once
dude.
we get going again,
Yeah.
just to see what.
It could be like a quiz for us.
Yeah.
You could grade it. Like now you're not gonna catch anything there.
No.
Nick, you're in the wrong area, buddy.
You ever had the guy, you're like somebody like Miles. Actually, Miles came up from the Gulf Coast up here, right? This year. And you get somebody from out of, like, not from out of town, because there's always out of towns, but like say Nick came up here and didn't fish, or Miles came up, or you came up here, and you're like, all right, let's see how this does. Well, Miles was like, what do you think? I was like, man, if you just run to the northeast like 115 120 miles to that blended blue water, I think you'll find them. And he was like, all right. And he fucking not he did, and he was the only one that really caught him that tournament, that Big Fish Classic. I think he, like, everybody was so downtrodden, but at that point it was like middle of July, and we're starting to get to the more intense part of the season, and there hadn't been many fish. And then Miles ran up there, and I'm like, man, I wish somebody, and I wasn't fishing that tournament. I was like, I wish somebody would go up there. And it took somebody from the Gulf Coast to run 120 miles. And he found, I don't know, he found a little spot at the end of the 2-day tournament,
Mhm.
and put up some fish. So it's pretty cool when you see somebody like, you're like, huh, let's see how this goes.
Yeah.
I'd be
What's your-
curious.
What's your like most important factor when it comes to reading water? Is it temperature or current or altimetry, or what? What's the most important factor?
I still look at the the chlorophyll for me and the temperature are the two. Like the first thing I look at, typically I look at the temperature, and then then I if it's a nice enough day and there's a chlorophyll shot too, I start to look at that. And then I don't actually pull up the arrows on the current, because I feel like if you really look at it and set the parameters up right, you can kind of tell which way the currents are going without the thing, because they're so broad, and I'm looking for little things, so I feel like you what I saw on I use rip charts mainly here, and terrafin up here, and I feel like if the wind's blowing a certain direction, all the current will be like that, unless it's the Gulf Stream, then it's going there. So I kind of make my own theories up in my head about the current. But for us, chlorophyll and temperature, and typically some years you're looking for that more blended blue water, and then some years you're just the last 2 years you're just looking for anything.
Yeah.
So
what about you, Nick? Do you guys pay attention to water shots a whole lot for sailfish season, or is it more just
for sailfishing? I mean, some guys do, some of the older guys do, and I have a little bit. But man, sometimes I feel like more than others, it just sends you on a wild goose chase a lot of times. And the best thing is just to be out there. You're not gonna get a better read than actually just running our boundary to boundary. And that's what typically a lot of guys, obviously most people don't do that because you're just don't waste a whole tank of gas. But like John Louis, for example, who's the OG. And I mean, without a doubt, every tournament, before the tournament, he'll run boundary to boundary. And I've caught myself doing it a couple times, especially if the weather's good. And that's just, to me, the best thing. Obviously, just seeing it for yourself, put your eye on it. Yeah. But in the Bahamas, we do look at the charts a lot. And it's something I definitely just want to get better at for sure,
Do you think just because in Florida, it's just all moving so quickly that because we're looking at, I feel like me and Chris were looking at something that's gonna, if it's there today, it's gonna be there tomorrow if the weather pattern stays relatively similar. Whereas I feel like your conditions move so quickly because you're so adjacent to the Gulf Stream.
Yeah, I mean, our water moves quick. I mean, it could be purple one day and you go back the next day and it's just sewer green,
or even a couple of hours sometimes, right?
Yeah. I mean, you could just get a pocket of blue water, and you'll even see it's where we are. It's you want to be, the North Boat. You want to be ahead of the pack because the fish are coming from the north. But there are the certain special days when you get that little eddy or pocket of blue, and it just goes from north to south, and you'll see the good guys, you see some guys going north, but the good guys are going south because they're staying on that top of that body, and they just keep picking at those fish as they're moving, So those days are really fun because people are oh, you got to go that way, and then the good guys are going one way. You're everyone's wait, where are they going?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like if you did see a little eddy spin off the Gulf Stream somewhere off you, by the time you ran out there the next day, it's probably not there.
Yeah, sometimes our water, I mean, when you're fishing, especially off Palm Beach and stuff, I mean, you'll see the lobster pots. I mean, they're it looks like you're in a river. I mean, sometimes it's 4 or 5 knots of just cranking water. I mean, where you're drifting an area I mean, you have to reset constantly because you're just smoking through an area.
Yeah, for us, I feel like the current is the most important factor for whatever reason. I look at water color and I don't really pay a whole lot of attention to the temperature, but that current, if you can find some current somewhere on the shelf, or current's definitely the most important for me.
Yeah.
Now
for us it is too.
Yeah. When you're fishing the rigs, do you have to fish on, like, you're not fishing on the tide because you're kind of committed to going to a certain rig, right? But are you waiting for a certain time? And you talked about the minor and the major earlier. Can you see that in the way what goes on in the water as well?
I don't see it in the water. It's, majors and minors, just, moon overhead, or, rising moon, setting moon, whatever. But
can you see, but what I mean by in the water, I mean, like, can you see life come and go on
yeah,
those?
normally outside of the majors and minors, you see all the bait pushed up on top, but they're not like pushed up. They're like, I call them happy tunas.
Happy bait, yeah.
They're just jumping because they're happy. But normally right around the major and minor, everything just disappears, and they're kind of get put in check. It's funny, I know Miles, he doesn't really buy into that a whole lot. He always gives me a bunch of crap about it, but I mean, those majors, one year we caught 49 out of 51 blue marlins in a major or minor. That's pretty concrete evidence. And same thing in the Dominican. I feel like it definitely holds true down there. I kind of would bounce around, and wherever a major or minor was, like, just go back to whatever looked the best and camp out for 2 hours.
Yeah. You see it a lot in the Bahamas too. I mean, like, just the past few years fishing the custom boat shootout and custom production. I mean, there's 60 boats in both those tournaments, and on the major and minor, that you got like that, you got those 2 windows, and I mean, in that little bit of time, every boat is hooked up or missing them, and it's like, you better catch as many as you can as fast, because it's going to completely die in a second, and then all of a sudden the radio goes just stone cold quiet, and then you get that little thing in the afternoon, and it's, again, everyone's just bang 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 bang, and then dead. So it's like whoever caught the most, and those little hot bites is your guy.
Yep, that's how it was in St. Thomas too. We took the Houdat down to St. Thomas in 2018, and when it would go off, everybody down the drop was hooked up, and then it'd go quiet for a little while, and then another flurry. But yeah, those, I swear by those majors and minors. Every time I see somebody like pick up and make a move in the major, I'm just like, dude, what are you doing? Why would you do that?
It's certain. I think they we have 4 major canyons here, is basically, and the 100 fathom line is the only real structure we have. And we have other canyons up and down, but I feel like there's certain spots in these canyons where the big eyes will congregate, and I feel like that when they bite, I don't know if it is because I'd never go in there, but there's like a handful of guys that are super, really, like, there can be 80 boats there, and the same 10 guys will end up winning the tuna tournament because they haven't figured out when they know what they're looking for, and they know when to be there. And I don't have the patience for any of that. So
that, and kind of like understanding how how the current is affected in the canyon, if it's funneled and the bait's going to stack in a certain area. I feel like here in the Gulf, current direction makes a big difference. If there's a certain southeast current hitting a certain side of the canyon, this part of the canyon is going to be better, or on a west current, this part's going to be better. And just from keeping a good log, I've been able to kind of make a pretty good guesstimate of what's it's going to be. But it's probably the same thing with those big eyes. When they see the tide change, or the minor, they know they're going to be just up current of this steep part or whatever.
Do you feel like because up here I feel like I get a lot of bites during the tide change. I see an edge push into inshore, and then, like, as it right before it starts to pull back offshore, like, I feel like that's when I'm like, this is it. I start to see the edge make up, and then you're like, oh man, it looks good, and you're kind of like, oh, this ain't gonna work out. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh man, there's a couple, and it kind of make goes.
Yeah, it's like that for us too. We have the Mississippi River dumps out right here in the Gulf, and sometimes you'll get opposing currents, and a couple degree temperature difference, just like the most unbelievable rip you've ever seen. And
Yeah.
when that thing's rolling offshore, when it's steadily just pushing offshore, and starts to get that foam built up on it, you're tacking back and forth, looks like you're just zigzagging offshore. Man, that's when those things are so good. And it's normally on that outgoing tide change just before it stops, I guess.
Yeah.
They're probably like, how deep does that does the water go when it's like that? Is it like a straight wall, or is it just on the surface?
It's just on the surface, but you'll see it down when it's pushing really hard like that. You can just see it rolling, and it'll be down like maybe 20 feet or so, and then it's blue water up underneath it. But it'll be like nasty, cloudy, like pussy, like just water pushed up against really nice stuff. That's always cool to fish. But yeah, this year for that dinkbait fishing, I was not really around any like major color changes, or it was just kind of fishing bottom structure. And thank God for the sonar. It gives you some confidence when you're wandering around in there. It got to the point where it was like, all right, I haven't marked one in like 30 minutes. Like, we got to get out of here. They're just not here. But then some days it's like they just all show up out of nowhere. I don't know. I've always been curious if even the blue marlins, do they go down like when you're fishing a rig for 4 or 5 hours and you're not really marking them, but all the conditions are right, and then during the major you just mark like 5? Like,
I feel like I'm convinced. I thought for the longest time like they don't go down. They never live down there. I don't know how deep they go, but I'm convinced now that like that they do go down for a little bit.
Yeah.
I was reading somewhere, it was either a podcast or reading something somewhere, and they said that blue marlins spend almost as much time at depth as the big eyes do. So it was hard for me to believe that, but I do know, if I've followed a few of them, if you're fishing a rig and you'll follow them up current for like a mile or two off the rig, and they're just not biting, not doing anything, and then it's like they just kind of show back up. I don't know if they're just kind of wandering into the current, just relaxing or what, but normally they'll just kind of leave those rigs in straight line. Maybe they eventually go down, but it seems like when you catch one and you put a tag in it, they always like wheel back around, and they're just sitting in the eddy on the down current side, just sitting right there. And I had that happen in Casa de Campo a handful of times. Like, I went by a fad, marked 2 on the up and down, catch a double, let them go. And then for the next 2 hours, you just mark a double header that's sitting right on the down current side, like on the thatching.
Those are definitely the ones you caught.
Yeah, weird.
I've always wondered how long it takes for it to like for a fish to get back to normal after catching it. I feel like it's a longer time than we think. Unless it's like a Mag Bay or Isla Mujeres like bait ball type scenario where they're so frothed up but I think in general, I think it takes a while. Yeah.
I remember talking to Tim, and he said a lot of times, I don't know if they satellite tagged them or what, but a lot of times those big blacks, they come to that part of the reef to spawn, and after you catch them, they'll just swim offshore and just keep going. I don't know if they don't spawn at all or they don't spawn there, but he said they won't come back.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I think it messes with them, and they just swim a long way for a longer time than we think.
So they estimated that fish that we killed at like 27 years old.
Wow.
Wonder how many trips up your way that thing's made. It's had to have been all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of I just saw one that there's 2 fish tagged with a satellite tag off of here this summer, and they both ended up off somewhere between Africa and Brazil, somewhere down there. So
27 is not that old. I felt like we talked to that guy from the Billfish Foundation, and I thought he said fish that big were normally like pushing 40 or more.
I wasn't on that one, so I don't know, but
we haven't got all the stuff back from the state. They took the head and ovaries and whatever the other thing is in their ear that they take to age them, but we haven't got that back. But just it was kind of like the biologist.
Yeah.
But wouldn't surprise me if it was more than that.
I feel like it got to be more. I mean, man, a fish that big, I feel like you've been swimming around for a lot longer than you think.
Yeah. The bill had like a weird little they like came up in the middle. It was like a weird little rudder that had almost formed into it from just miles and miles of traveling. Pretty cool.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
some of
crazy.
those swordfish that you catch that have like the grooves in them, they say from traveling fish. Like that thing had like its dorsal was starting to round off a little bit at the top, and the bill had the built-in rudder. I was like, man, this is a traveler here.
Yeah, he's seen some oceans.
Mhm.
That's crazy. That's cool, man. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, man. Well, we appreciate you joining us, Chris, man. It was a pleasure getting to know you. You're, like I said, your reputation up here is pretty good from the guys from that been to the DR. So I appreciate you joining us,
It
dude.
was good meeting you guys, and we'll have to stay in touch and keep talking fishing. It was a pleasure being a part of the podcast, and I enjoy following along with you guys. So keep up the good work, and I'll keep following along.
Cool, man. We
Yeah, man.
appreciate it.
Thanks, bro.
Yes,
Thanks.
sir. Y'all have a good evening.
Thanks, Chris, Nick, and thank everybody for listening. I think this is going to be a good one. So thank you.